Well, kia ora, everyone, and I want to echo what Marissa said about a big thank you for all joining us today. I can imagine how busy your lives are, how full your lives are. So I always think it's important just to acknowledge yourself for tuning up, for investing some time in yourself and in your own development. So thank you. And I also want to thank the Ignite team for bringing us together today. This is, I think, my fourth or fifth webinar that I've done with Ignite. And I always really appreciate how they think about what would be most valuable for their clients, for their customers at particular times during the year. And I know in my own personal private coaching practice that I do, a lot of people that I'm talking to are very heavily focused on goal setting. So it feels really timely that we have this series around goal setting. So a little bit about me. I've got some notes up there about me, but I'm very much a habits geek. Actually, I'm just a big geek all round. I love understanding how the world works, particularly people. People fascinate me. Why we do the things we do, how we learn, how we behave, how we react. All of that stuff is kind of the thing that gets me really excited. And what I do with Ignite, but also my private coaching practice called Spring Coaching, is I work with individuals and teams to help them perform their best consistently. And when I say their best, it's however they define their best to be. And I say consistently because I've learnt the hard way that you can push yourself to get ahead, to be at the top of your game, but if you're not able to do that in a sustainable manner, you end up not doing so well. In my case, I ended up on crutches as an athlete. But often what happens is in the workplace is we end up burning out or feeling quite unwell. So I like to help people to perform their best, but be able to do that consistently rather than be like a one-hit wonder, if we were to use a music analogy. So my background is in science. I'm one of those people that loves to read scientific journals, and that is just because I love to understand why. Prior to setting up my business in high performance coaching, I actually spent about 20 years working in strategy planning and performance. And they were great roles. I got to help organizations to work out what their definition of success was, what their vision was, and then help them see how that would cascade down from high level vision down to data operations. As I said, my interest in high performance actually really started as an athlete. I've always been a person that likes to push myself, and I thought the more I run, the better runner I would be, not realizing that a key aspect for an athlete is actually rest and recovery. You get stronger, fitter, faster during your recovery days, not during your training days. And it took me a long, long time to learn that lesson, but that is the lesson now that I carry into my business and I apply to the business world. I live in beautiful Tautohe, which is Carterton in the Wairarapa, and I live here with my husband and my dog called Barkley. And I've made it to be a little tradition that every time I have a webinar, I share an up-to-date photo of Barkley, just because he's a little bit goofy looking. He always makes me smile, and he's just such a lovely dog. So if he makes someone else smile, then that's a really great thing. So this is Barkley yesterday. He's had a haircut since I last shared a picture of him a couple of weeks ago, and his leg is now healing really, really well. Last time he just had his stitches out of his leg after having a lump removed. So it's his first day being able to run and play and chase balls. So he's doing really well. So this is a trilogy. We've got 3 parts. Last time we met, we talked more about the direction. How do you set goals? Because it can be quite fun to set goals. At least I think it's fun to set goals, particularly if you have a nice new journal or a new pen to write with. But actually setting goals that stick, that's where the challenge is. So that's what we discussed a fortnight ago. Now, if you missed that series, that's okay. You can catch up by watching the recording, but also today's session will stand alone by itself as well. And I'll do a quick recap. So if you were here a fortnight ago, awesome. This was just going to build on those lessons. If you weren't, that's okay. You can either catch up, but today's webinar will also be really useful for you. So today what we're going to talk about is how to build the systems so that you can deliver on your goals. So that's about how to turn goals into simple habits and systems that support steady progress even when life gets busy. And as I said at the start, the fact that you're here today is a huge kudos to you for making time. And I've kind of used a little tagline for this webinar as systems eat goals for breakfast. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a moment. And then in a fortnight's time, we're going to meet again about how to stay the course, how to keep doing the things that you've said you're going to do. Because it's one thing to set a goal, it's another to actually do the thing to make the goal happen. But it's a whole different ballgame to be able to do it consistently, particularly when life gets even busier. And that tagline is momentum beats motivation. So all three sessions are really valuable in themselves, but they also come together to give you a complete package. So what we're going to cover today, we are going to do a very, very quick recap on how to set goals that stick. We won't spend too much time here, but I think it's helpful for today's session. I'll explain what I mean by why systems eat goals for breakfast. Then I'm going to take you through 3 different tools. The first tool is going to be about how to break big goals, whatever they may be. A fortnight ago, we talked about the big goal of buying a house, how to break that big goal down into actions, how to pick the right action to focus on, because there can be this temptation to have all these things you want to do all at once to get to your goal and then feel so overwhelmed that you just can't move forward. So I've got a tool to help with that. And then you can have the right action to focus on, but how do you make the action stick? How do you actually do it? So I've got another tool to help you with that. And at the end, I'm going to share some resources. So if there's anything I've said today that you want to know more about, you'll be able to check out these resources and learn more. Or of course, you can book a session with me, and all the resources I'll be sharing with you are things that I've read and I've used and I share with my clients as well. Now, down the bottom, I've got take a bet on yourself. So let me explain what I mean by that, because it really helps you to kind of get the most out of today's webinar. And that's what I want. I want this webinar not only to be interesting, but to be really useful for you as well, because I've been there. I've been to lots of webinars and workshops, and you learn some interesting things. But then you go away, life gets busy, and you forget about the stuff that you've learned. So I want to make this as useful as possible. What I would recommend, if you don't already, is to make sure that you've got pen and paper with you. I just find it's really helpful to be able to take notes, and there will be opportunities throughout today's webinar to do some doing. So the B stands for being open-minded. And I say that for 2 reasons. One, I might share some things today that might challenge some of your perceptions, some of your thinking, and that's okay. All I'd ask is for you to be open-minded and just to think about it. Let it maybe percolate or marinate for a wee while, but also be open-minded, because I might share some things with you that you think you already know, and that is fantastic if you already know that. But there's a difference between knowing things and doing things. And I often talk about the gap between the things that you know you could, should, ought, or want to do and the things that you actually do. Also, if I'm sharing things that you already know, often when someone else shares it, you learn something that you didn't realize beforehand. So that's what the B stands for, is to be open-minded. The E stands for be engaged, and Marissa's already touched on that because this is a webinar, the chat is turned off. However, if you want to engage with us, you can do that through the Q&A function. You can also certainly give some reactions throughout. If I say something that you love, please give me a love heart. If I say something you think's fantastic, you give me a clap. Feel free to use those reactions and engage with us, and also engage by doing some of the activities that we're going to be going through today. And then the final T is for take action. So there are going to be times during the webinar where I'm going to pause and let you do the things that we've been talking about. And this is so that you can put into practice what we're learning straight away, because that will make it easier for you to do it after this webinar. So the options for you are to actually take that opportunity to take action and do the activity, or to sit there and pause, maybe catch your breath, while other people are doing the doing. So it's your choice. But yeah, so that's what the BET stands for. Be open-minded, be engaged, and take action. We want this to be useful, not just interesting. So with our recap, I just want to start off by sharing the definition of a goal, because it's always good to know what it is that you're talking about. And I particularly like this definition from Dr. Elliot Berkman, who is a specialist in neuroscience and behavior change. And he says a goal is any desired outcome that wouldn't otherwise happen without some kind of intervention. The reason why I love this definition is, one, because it's simple. There's far more complex definitions out there, but it touches on 2 key points. A goal is something that you want, but it needs you to do something differently. You have to take a different course of action for that goal to come true. And that's kind of the separation between a goal and a dream. And so that's why goals naturally have a sense of friction. You have to do something different, and doing something different is uncomfortable. So the key things that we covered off last time was the fact that change requires action. To achieve a goal, you have to do something different, and that's what makes it hard. So why set goals in the first place if they're so challenging? It's because goals do matter. There are so many studies out there that show that goals bring happiness, they bring ease to your life, they make decision-making easier, but they also help to reduce negative feelings like fear and anxiety. And it's not so much about achieving the goal that brings you happiness, it's actually the progress, the working towards the goal that is so fulfilling. So goals are really important. They bring more meaning to your life, particularly if you ever feel that you're in a little bit of a rut. Even setting a goal, something really simple, can make the world of difference. Don't underestimate the power of a small change. But every goal needs two key ingredients. Those two key ingredients are a will, which is the why, the motivation, kind of the emotional side behind the goal. And you also need to have a way. That's the how. That's the cognitive aspect of the goal. So you need to have a reason for doing the thing in the first place, the motivation, and you need to have a plan of how to get there. So the other two things. And then typically when people set goals, there are a number of mistakes that they make. And these are the things that we want to avoid. So when you're setting goals, I want you to be successful. And things that will make you more successful when you're setting a goal is by making it personal. Connect the goal to what truly matters to you, not your parents, not your siblings, not your spouse, not your manager or your neighbor or whoever. It needs to be something that matters to you. You need to focus on your why. Otherwise, if it matters to someone else, you're not going to do it because we're all a little bit rebellious deep down inside. Keep it simple. There's this temptation to set so many goals at one time because we are amazing. We want to do everything all at once. But actually, the more goals you set, the harder it is going to be to achieve any. So keep it simple. Focus on one goal at a time. Or if you really must do more than one, maybe no more than 3. Then it's about finding the sweet spot, like Goldilocks and 3 bears. You want something that's challenging, that kind of motivates you, that gets you going, but not so challenging that you feel so overwhelmed that you can't make a start. So finding that sweet spot. You need to be specific. And you may have heard of SMART goals. A kind of shortcut route to making things specific is to visualize success. How will you know you've got there at the end? So be specific. Now, this next one's a little bit of a contradiction. Add some wiggle room. And what I mean by that is, I've said this a few times already, life is busy. And sometimes despite best intentions, we're not able to do the things that we want to do. By giving yourself a little wiggle room, it means that the goal is more doable and you're less likely to fall into that all or nothing thinking where if you miss once, there's this tendency to think you've failed and you give up altogether. So I suggest using a high-low range. So a study's found that you're more likely to lose 3 to 5 pounds than lose 4 pounds. So you give yourself that range to make it more life-proof. And then finally, get started straight away. That's the best thing you can do in order to achieve your goals, is to set yourself a tiny step, because action creates momentum. There's nothing more satisfying than ticking something off. So make a start straight away. So what I want to hear from you, and this is this quick poll that Marissa touched on, is using your reaction buttons, which you'll see down the bottom. I want to know, typically, when you're setting a goal, which of those 2 ingredients do you typically focus on more? So if you're all about the heart, if you always focus on the why, the emotional component of your goal, you're going to do a little love heart reaction. If you're more kind of more of a planner like I am, you might find that you usually focus on how you're actually going to do it. What's the plan? And sometimes that can lead to decision paralysis. So if you're a person that more focuses on the way, the how, you're going to do a little clap reaction. And if you're one of those people that you feel that you do both equally, and you could have written the course I did a fortnight ago, you could do a little ta-da, the little trumpet sign. So just use your reactions. I'll give you a couple of seconds. Just have a think about, for you, which one do you tend to focus on Nice, and great to see some reaction. You've got kind of a good crossbreed there. We've got a few people that have talked about that they focus on the will more, which is the why. Some people that say the way. And we've had a couple of people, I saw a couple of tadars that say that they do them equally. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing and engaging. It's always really nice to know that there are people out there. So I want to go next into what I mean by this idea of systems eat goals for breakfast. And I'm very much a visual person, I think, in pictures. So I thought the best way that I can demonstrate this is through pictures. So if you can imagine, this is someone's desk. And I want to be very clear that this is not my desk. I promise my desk does not look like this. But this person has a desk like this, and they've realized that when they sit down to work, you know what, they can't focus, their brain feels really cluttered, they feel stressed out. And so they set a goal that they want to have a clear desk. Now, this goal is fine, but if we were to apply what we learned a fortnight ago, we can make this goal more successful. We could set ourselves up for success by having a better goal. Maybe it's to have a clean desk in the next 2 to 3 weeks. There's a high to low range so that I feel more calm. That's the why. I'll know that I've succeeded. So that's being specific, because when I sit down, I'll be able to see my pot plant. So that's this person's goal. They want to have a clean desk in the next 2 to 3 weeks, which feels, it's going to be a challenge for them. Life is busy, but they can do it so that they feel more calm, their why. And they'll know that they've succeeded because when they sit down, they'll be able to see their pot plant. Now, through the powers of AI, I have cleaned up this desk and voila, they've achieved it. So now they can see their pot plant. They know that they've succeeded in their goal, which is fantastic. But then what? Then what? Life gets busy. And before you know it, papers start to accumulate. And then some more, maybe some fall on the ground. Life gets busier, they give them meaning to clean their desk. They pop up, now their pot plant's gone. And before they know it, they're back to square one. And so they had a great goal. They ticked all the right boxes. But what they were missing was a system to keep their desk tidy. So hopefully that makes sense. And this can be applied to so many different things out there. So let's talk about the difference between a goal and a system. So a goal is a result that you want. The system is the process that leads to the result. And that means that you can repeat it. It happens time and time again. So a goal gives you focus. It gives you something to work towards, but it really creates change, or at least lasting change on its own. It does inspire you. Goals are so important. They give meaning to your life. But it doesn't tell you exactly what to do today. They're often abstract, unless, of course, the person's attended that course that we did 2 weeks ago. Then they've got a good specific goal. And often they are long-term. So long-term goals can be hard because, it's hard to keep things going over and over again. And they're often outcome focused, which does mean that they're not always within your control. So some examples of goals could be, and I've given a sporting analogy because those that attended a fortnight ago will know that the top goal that people set at New Year's is to improve their fitness. So I've given the example of run a marathon, or save 2,000, which is the second top New Year's resolution, or to have an empty inbox. So there are some examples of goals. Let's look at what a system is. So a system focuses on what you do consistently. It allows sustainable effort without burnout. It means that things are easy, regular, quick wins. It means that you're always kind of ticking things off, which gives you that sense of progress. It's process focused, which means it's more within your control. And so some examples, and I've tried to tear them up with a goal. So run a marathon. A system would be having a daily physical exercise habit. The goal of saving 2,000, the system would be having an automatic payment to a savings account. Having an empty inbox would be implementing zero inbox methodology. If you're interested to know more about zero inbox methodology, I've got some great resources that I can send through to you. Just send me an email or let me know at the end of this. So that's a couple of examples of how goals are different to systems and how systems are the things that help you to achieve your goal consistently. So you're going to be hearing a lot about this book and this guy called James Clear, but he says that you do not rise to the level of your goals. In fact, you fall to the levels of your system. And that's a key message to take throughout today's webinar. So it's all very well and good to have a goal, but how can you actually build that system? And this is a framework that I want to share with you. So this is tool number 1, and this is to help you break that big goal down into action so you have a system. It's called the GSPA, which stands for Goal, Skill, Practice, and Action framework. And it's a behavioral change model that translates long-term goals, so the big things like running a marathon, buying a house, something big, into daily habits. And this is something that I learned when I did a certificate through a company called Precision Nutrition, and it was a certificate in change psychology. So the goal is the result that you want. The skill is the ability or the capacity that you need to reach your goal. And those that were here a fortnight ago may remember that we talked about the behavior change framework, where up one axis you had skills, ability, capacity, and at the other one you had motivation. So that skill connects to that. Then you have practice, which is the next level down, which are the routines or the behaviors that you're going to do regularly to strengthen the skill. And then the actions are the things that build up the routines. So the actions are the specific, tiny, repeatable behaviors that build the system. These are your habits, the day-to-day things that you do. And I've shown this in a little bit of a flow diagram. Now, I like balance, which is why it's got 1, 2, 4, and 8. It doesn't need to be like that, but it kind of shows you how it flows from the goal down to the skill, down to the practice, and then down to little tiny steps, the actions. So let me give you a bit of an example, because it's one thing to see a theory, it's another to see it in action. So I'm going to do this as a flow diagram so you're familiar with that flowing down that cascade effect, first of all. So we're going to use that first goal that we had from the desk of to have a clean desk in the next 2 to 3 weeks so they feel more calm. I know that I've succeeded because when I sit down, I'll be able to see my pot plant. So this person's going to think about what sort of skills do I need to do this? And the first thing they'll think about is, well, I need to be able to categorize and store the stuff that's coming on my desk. So that's one skill. Another skill that they may think about is, I need to have the ability to know what to keep, what to store, and basically what to chuck. So those are just 2, and it could be more skills than that, it could be less, but these are 2 skills that this person's thought of. So what are some of the practices that I can do that will help me strengthen these skills? Well, a practice I could have would be to use a consistent sorting method every time I touch an item. Another one would be to have a home for every item. So things have a designated place. Very good if you have brain fog like I do, particularly during perimenopause and you lose your things. Having a home for things really helps. Or it could be about reviewing your desk contents weekly with a quick keep, store, discard checklist, say every Friday. So those are the practices. If we were to take it down to the next level, which are your tiny wee steps, the actions, it could be immediately assign items to keep, action, or file. And maybe you have the action that if it's something that can be done in 2 minutes, you action it straight away. Or maybe in terms of the practice of giving every item a clear home, is having a set container for all of your pens to go in so they don't end up scattered everywhere. Or maybe it's having a single incoming tray for papers. Some other actions could be having a 5-minute Friday desk scan or moving non-essentials to your storage quickly. And you'll notice that some of these could be one-off things and some of them could be things that you would do regularly, like a habit. So that's one example of the goal, skill, practice, action framework as a flow diagram. If that's not your jam, you could just do it in a simple table. So I won't go through all the details, but you could set up with a goal. I've done another fitness goal, given that's a common goal that people set at this time of the year, to run 5 kilometers in 8 weeks so that I feel confident. The skills you'd need would be running endurance, also running efficiency and recovery, some of the practices, So structured running sessions, cross-training, strength and mobility, pacing, and a whole lot of actions of different things that you could do. And these actions would help you build the practice, the daily routines that would help you build the skills that would deliver on that goal. So that's how it looks in practice. So now it's going to be your turn. What I'd like you to do is, hopefully you do have pen and paper there, is to pick a goal. So for those that were here a fortnight ago, you could use that goal that you defined during our session. If you weren't here a fortnight ago, no problem, just pick another goal. Or you could use one of the goals that we've already done. Once you have a goal, I want you to identify at least one skill that you'll need to achieve that goal. Then think about what is the practice that would build that skill, and then name one tiny action. And when I talk about actions, think small, 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 that will support the practice. So I'm going to give you, it says 5 minutes, but I think, I'm going to give you 3 minutes to do this, and I'll set a timer and let you give it a go. See how you go, and I'll bring us back in 3 minutes. So we've got about 30 more seconds, and then we'll come back together. Okay, a huge congratulations to those who took the opportunity to put what they're learning into practice and for taking action. Well done. I know it's always hard to do, so congratulations. So what we've done now is we've broken a large goal down into small actions, which is great. But often what I find, particularly with the people that I work with, is that they come up with loads of actions that they want to do. So then the challenge becomes, what action do you do first? Because we only want to do one at a time. And so that's where this next tool comes in. So how to pick the right action to focus on. So, as I said, the challenge is that you can want to do everything, then you get overwhelmed, so you can't make progress. But also, sometimes actions can feel too hard, so you can't do them. Or you pick an action and you find out that it doesn't actually make a difference, which is even more frustrating when you're doing something and you're not feeling like you're making any progress. Or, this often happens to me, you can get stuck into decision paralysis and you can't move forwards. Where it's like, oh, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. What do I do? So I've got a tool to help with that, and it's called focus mapping. So focus mapping helps you decide what action to pick. What's going to be the best bang for your buck? And this is a really cool tool. I love this and use this all the time. So I want to do a massive shout out, first of all, to BJ Fogg. Now, he is the one that's come up with this idea, and he's often referred to in James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. A lot of the principles of Atomic Habits come from this book here called Tiny Habits. So what focus mapping is it's a simple way to identify the actions that are going to give you the biggest impact. It helps you to decide what to focus on and kind of what to forget about, what to just let go, put into the too hard basket. It helps you to prioritize high value actions over busy work, and it helps to reduce overwhelm and stop that decision paralysis I've talked about. Basically keeps you moving forwards consistently so you can make progress, which is all great things. How it works is that there's 4 steps, and another framework where there's a 4 kind of quadrant. Beautiful, I love the balance. So the first step is to brainstorm some supporting actions. And you could do that by using the goal, skills, practice, action framework that I shared with you, or you could just do a big old-fashioned brain dump and dump all those ideas out of your head, all the different things that you could do that would get you towards your goal. It then gets you to sort those actions by impact. And by impact, I mean how effective is that little action going to be in helping you achieve your goal? And then once you've done that, the next step is to sort by feasibility. So how easy is it for you realistically in real life scenario in your life to do this action? And once you've done that, you can then select your golden behaviors. And often there'll only be a couple that you're going to pick from, which you're going to focus on first. So again, I know it's all well and good seeing the theory, so let's do an example together. So in the interest of time, I've set it up with an example already, and I'm limited the number of actions, otherwise we could be here till like 9 p.m. tonight and no one wants that. So the goal that I have set is I want to feel more calm so that when I respond to something, I pause first rather than just reacting. So allowing yourself that time to just breathe before you go, ah. So here are some actions that I thought of that could help me with this. I could take 3 deep breaths. I could journal every day. I could spend time with Barkley, my family pet. I could schedule worry time, which is a technique where you set time aside in your day to purposely worry about the things that are occupying your brain, and you set a time limit on it. I could go for a walk, and I could have someone to tell me to calm down. So there were 6 actions that I thought of that might help me to achieve my goal. So the next thing I want to do is plot them by how effective this thing is at calming me down. And so I'm just thinking about, is it very effective or not effective on that continuum, that scale? So the first one, take 3 deep breaths. This is something I do quite often, and I do find that it helps to calm me down. So I put it there because sometimes it's not enough. I could journal every day, and this is something that I've tried on and off, and to be honest, it doesn't help me in the moment. I could spend time with Barkley, and I definitely find that helps calm me down. There's something about stroking Barkley or seeing his smile or his bushy eyebrows, it just kind of settles me. I could schedule worry time, and to be honest, this is something I've done several times, but I find that it's hard to set that time aside just to worry and not allow it to creep into other times. So for me, it's not very effective, but I know it's very effective for other people. I could go for a walk, which I do find is really effective. It gives me that time and space to get away from the thing before I react. Or I could have someone tell me to calm down, and that just racks me up even more. So I've put that down the bottom. That's not very effective. So I've sorted these by impact. The next thing I want to do is go side by side. How easy are they for me to do? And so the thing I'd suggest you do when you do this exercise is to ask yourself the question, can I get myself to do this? And you'd have, yes, I can get myself to do this on one end of the scale, and no, I can't get myself to do this at the other. And then we're going to plot those. So yes, I can. It's quite easy for me to get myself to take 3 deep breaths. don't find it very easy to journal every day, which is probably why I don't have that as a habit yet. It is pretty easy for me to spend time with Barkley if I'm working from home. I'm not always working from home. Sometimes I go out to meet clients. So that's why I've put that in the middle. So you'll see that the height is staying the same. I'm just moving them acrosswards. I could schedule worry time. Yeah, no, not very easy. I can't get that myself to do that. Or I could get someone to tell me to calm down. I'm not going to ask someone to do that. So I've put that at that far end as well. So from there, the next step is to select the golden behaviours, which are the things in the top right-hand corner. So for me, I've got go for a walk and take 3 deep breaths. So already I've reduced that number of 7 down to just a couple. So that's how it works. So I'm going to pause again just for a couple of minutes, and this is only going to take a couple of minutes to get you to do this yourself. Now, in the interest of time, I've set yourself a goal. And I've suggested some actions that you might like to take. I'd recommend writing these actions on a little piece of paper or a post-it note just so you can move them around. You don't need to write them in full. It could be just like walk, stairs, march on the spot, those sorts of things. And these actions are for the goal, I want to walk for 20 to 30 minutes without getting puffed. So all you'll do is sort those first of all by impact, from most effective to least effective, and then sort by feasibility. Yes, I can make myself do this. No, I can't. And then the ones in the top right, they're your golden behaviour. So again, I'll give you a couple of minutes to do this, and then we'll come back together. So we've got just one more minute, just making sure you've got some things that you've been able to write down and move about, just test out focus mapping. When you do this in real life, you'll probably have more actions that you want to move about, but again, just in the interest of time, we've just kept it to only a few. And think about your life. What is feasible, doable for you? What is effective for you, not someone else? And then your golden behaviours will be the things that are effective and that are easy for you to do. They're the things that you want to focus on first. So just another 30 seconds and then we'll come back together. Fantastic. Okay, well done. I'm going to move on now to the final tool. So our final tool is how to actually implement these. How do we make these actions happen in our day-to-day life? And this is where the book Atomic Habits really is very helpful. So, as I say, having the right action is great, but doing it consistently is what creates the change. And habits fall over when they don't have a place in your day. It's like when we're talking about having a home for items. So what we need is to create some sort of trigger that signals that it's time to do that behavior. And that is what habit stacking, which is a key concept of this book, Atomic Habits, is all about. So habit stacking gives your actions an anchor so that they actually happen. So again, I'll explain how this works. So you pick something that you do every day as an anchor, and then you attach your tiny action to that anchor so it has a natural home. When that anchor happens, it reminds you to do what you need to do. That means you don't need to rely on willpower because you have that trigger happening. And so over time, the pairing becomes automatic. So For some sharp eyes, you may have noticed that some of those actions that I had in the previous tool for focus mapping, I'd actually connected them already with something. So for example, I had the march on the spot while I brush my teeth, or do 5 squats while the kettle is boiling, or do calf stretches when I first wake up. That in itself is a habit stack. So back to you, your turn. This is the final item for you to work on. It's turning your action now into a habit stack. So I want you to pick an action, and it could be a golden behavior from the example that we just done. If fitness was a goal for you, then that would be quite a helpful thing to pick. Or it could be an action that you found from that GSPA framework. So pick an action, and then think of something that you do every day. I've given a few examples there of things that I do every day, whether it be wake up, make coffee, eat chocolate, or log into your computer. And then you'll create your habit stack. So the formula that you're going to use is, after I eat chocolate, I will do a stretch. Or after I log into my computer, I will decide what I want to achieve for the day. Or after I wake up, I will have a good stretch. And then, of course, the final bit, the most important bit, the bit that many of us fall down on, is to actually do it. So next time you do that existing habit, whatever it may be, you do your new tiny action straight away. Straight away. So pick an action, identify an anchor, create your habit stack, and then do it. That's your habit stack. So I'll give you 30 seconds for this one because it's quite quick to do. Woohoo! Okay, well done. So we have learned our 3 tools. Let's bring it all together now. So I always like to finish a webinar with 5 key takeaways for you. The first thing to take away is that goals are the destination. The systems are what get you there repeatedly. Remember that messy desk? We want to have a system to keep a clean desk. Next key message is that small actions add up. The small actions are what build your routines, which build your skills, which deliver your goals repeatedly. Prioritize wisely. All actions aren't created equal. You want to pick one that is doable for you. It must be doable for you so you can do it. And you want it to be something that has impact. So think high impact, but doable for you. And then connect it to something that you already do, your habit stacking. Anchor your habits to something that you already do daily. That makes it so much easier. It helps to reduce the friction. And then last but not least, consistency is what creates change. That was the difference between the messy desk and then a clean desk staying clean. It's doing those actions time and time again, and it's momentum that comes from what you do every day. So if I was to sum it up in just a couple of words, it's small actions, consistent systems, lasting change. So here are some resources. If you want to dive into any of this in more detail, these are the books that I'd really recommend. So the first one, The Power of the Habit by Charles Duhigg. This is a great book, and this book is referred to a lot in the other books. I think this was the first one. Then there's Tiny Habits. That's where you learn more about the focus mapping technique from BJ Fogg. That's also referred to in this final book, which is called The Atomic Habits by James Clear. And I believe all 3 of these people, they're great to follow on LinkedIn. They've also, I think all of them have newsletters and podcasts. Again, great people to follow. And of course, if you want any more information, by all means, reach out to me, book a session, and of course, connect with me. I often share these sorts of tips over social media, over LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. So just to sum up today's webinar, and just another quote from James Clear, the purpose of setting goals is to win the game, but the purpose of building systems is to continue playing the game. So remember the distinction there. The goal is the result you want. The system is what gets you there repeatedly. So what's coming up next? So we've learnt how to set the direction. We've learnt how to build a system so that you do it. In a fortnight's time, we're going to meet again to talk about how to keep that momentum going, how to stay motivated when the going gets tough. So hopefully I'll see you all then as well. What I'll do now is I'll open it up for questions and I'll stop screen sharing so we can all see each other. Fantastic.
Great. Thanks, Josie. That was really awesome. Um,
Pleasure.
if anybody has any questions, feel free to chuck them in the Q&A now.
I'll do my best to answer.
Great. Just in the meantime, I've got a couple.
Oh, I
So,
love your questions.
so what are the common signs that a system might need refining rather than abandoning altogether?
Oh, that's a good one. I think if you feel like you're doing something day in and day out, but you feel like you're not getting closer to your goal, that would suggest that maybe you're not doing the right action. There's this famous quote that insanity is the definition of doing the same thing but expecting a different result, and I think that comes to play here. But if
Hmm.
you feel that overall you're making progress, but it's not every day that you feel like you're making progress, then that's completely normal because progress is not a straight line. You're going to have some days where you dip down and other days where you feel like you're shooting for the stars. So just it's about the overall pattern.
Very, very true. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Um, Under the for the GSPA sprint,
Hmm,
if someone is struggling to identify the right skill to focus on in a sprint, where would you recommend they start?
that's a good question. Few things come to mind. You could think about someone that's doing that thing that you want to be able to do, and either just go and ask them, or if you don't feel comfortable asking them for whatever reason, say maybe you don't know that person, so you can't ask them, kind of observe them, whether that be, sounds terrible, but kind of online watching them, not in a creepy way, but just kind of follow them on social media to see what they're doing. Or I have to say, there's a lot to be said for AI. You could say to AI, hey, I have this goal. What are the different skills, abilities, and techniques you think will help me get there? And that might help you. It might give you some ideas.
Hmm, very true. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Can habit stacking work for more complex goals, or is it more suited for like small daily actions?
Mm. So if you think about that framework again, so the habits are the things that create the routines, which creates the skills, which then takes you to the goals. And so the goal can be as complex as you like. It can be the really big, gnarly, hairy goal, but it's all about breaking it down to that tiny, tiny wee goal. And the habit stacking is connected to the tiny wee goal, that tiny wee action that you can do each and every day. And you could go for a big, gigantic sandwich of a stack where you've got like loads and loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of things. I know I have a client that her goal is to have 10 simple actions that she stacks on top of each other. And that becomes her high performing routine that she does every day. And that sets her up for success. It can be as big or as small as you like, just like a sandwich.
Got it. Thank you. Um, is there any other? So, someone has asked, it's tricky to sort things into practices versus actions. Can you
Yes.
clarify the difference, please?
Oh, I agree. That's the one that I get stuck on as well. I just always think that actions is the level down from the practice. So I think like a practice is being a routine of doing different actions together and an action being one separate thing. Hopefully that helps. Um, Without bringing back the slides that I had, it's thinking about the smallest possible thing that you can think of. And often they only take a couple of minutes. That's the action. The practice is the putting those actions together into a routine.
Yeah,
Hopefully
great,
that helps. It's a tricky one.
great. Thank you. Is there any other questions? Got anything else?
We're so good with our timing.
I know. Cool. Well, if there isn't any other questions, I shall, will we bring up the karakia
Yeah,
to close us off?
absolutely.
Great.
There we go.
Cool. Mā te rongo, ka mōhio, mā te mōhio, ka marama, mā te marama, ka mātou, mā te mātou, ka ora. Through listening comes awareness. Through awareness comes understanding. Through understanding comes knowledge. Through knowledge comes life and well-being. Kia ora.
Kia.
Great. Thanks heaps, Josie. I
Thank you
hope you
all, everyone, for joining me today. It's always great to be able to share this knowledge with you all, and I hope it makes a difference and you're able to achieve your goals.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, go well, everybody. Hope everybody has a good rest of your day. Ka kite.
Ka kite.
Mm.